Good afternoon and welcome to session 16A and 16B of the Business School Leaders Forum, brought to you by GoToWebinar by LogMeIn. I'm joined by two speakers today who will be presenting two presentations. The first presentation will be brought to you by Hanna Pesonen, Dean and Professor of Corporate Environmental Management, Jyväskylä University School of Business and Economics, who will be presenting on addressing climate change, the role of business schools. The second presentation will be brought to you by Claudine Blamey, Head of Sustainability and Digital Strategy at Argent, and former Interim Director of Sustainability EasyJet, who will be presenting on sustainable development and its importance for MBAs. I'll pass over to Hanna to present, but before I do, we will have a joint Q&A session at the end, so if you have any questions throughout the presentations, please feel free to type them in and hopefully we'll get a chance to answer them all. The speakers have agreed that any unanswered questions will get passed over to them and they'll be in contact with you directly. So without further ado, I'll now pass over to Hanna.
Thank you, Paul. Climate change, the topic of today, without a doubt, one of the greatest, if not the greatest, challenge to the humankind. The change is brought by climate change already by now, and what we are expecting to see in the coming years need a lot of mitigation and adaptation in all sectors of the society. For businesses, it's both a threat and an opportunity. So we probably can't deny the fact that businesses have been part of the problem in creating the climate change as one of the actors in the society, but just as well, you can say that they certainly can be part of the solution too. So that's good to remember. We will see businesses suffering a lot from the climate change and the effects, but on the other hand, it will offer a lot of new opportunities and a lot of new solutions are needed to fight the climate change impacts in the society, calling for innovations, offering space for new business models, opening totally new markets. About the role of the business schools, as many countries and businesses now already are aiming for carbon neutrality, for instance, the European Union by 2050, according to the Kyoto Protocol, some even sooner. Some ideas about the role of the business schools, and I'm talking using now my own school, the School of Business and Economics at the University of Jyväskylä, Finland, as a case example for you. I will start with the strategic support that we get from the university. We are part of a larger university, and many of the things that we are doing in terms in the area of sustainability as a whole, we are doing together with the university. Some things then specifically at the business school. But important to note, I think, that according to the mission of the university, we are a university with social impact, first of all. The university has 6 focus areas in research and education, and one of those is sustainable business and economy. So that really lays a nice foundation, a very strong foundation then for all the sustainability work that we are doing at the School of Business and Economics. We are, at the business school, we are fully committed to the university's strategy. And actually, the roots of sustainability work at the business school can be traced back to at least 1980s. We had a very active group of researchers by that time, starting to work together on themes around the role of business in society, such as business ethics, stakeholder management, then later on more specifically about environmental issues, where I came along then sometime in the 90s and so on. Since then, responsible business and sustainability have grown into a leading focus area for our business school in our mission, and a very strong connecting theme in our research and education as a whole. It's probably fair to say that we have been one of the global pioneers among business schools in research and education in this very area. In early 2000s, from 2001 to 2012, we were successfully recognized in the Aspen Institute's Beyond Grey Pinstripes survey Some of you might remember that, where we were positioned among the top global 100 business schools and also recognized as a truly cutting edge, leading the way in integrating issues of social and environmental stewardship into our curricula and research. Something we have done among the first globally, we have been offering an international master's program in corporate environmental management, my own area, since 1995. Also, we publish an electronic journal of business ethics and organization studies since 1996, and very much of the content of that very journal is in the area of sustainability. Now I can't hear. The cursor was lost for a second. So next I will continue presenting to you 4 sectors where we are doing sustainability work at the School of Business and Economics. Research education, then our campuses on sustainability, our own operations, plus then sustainability impacts in society through cooperation. I will skip the education at this point and talk about the 3 others first, and then come back to the education a bit later. First, about the research. As I already told you, actually the roots of sustainability at our business school are in research. So that's where it all started, with independent researchers coming together to work on these issues. Where we are today, we have 9 research groups at the school, and most of those, actually 5 today, have some kind of a focus in sustainability issues. For instance, we have a group on responsible management, sustainable business, culture and diversity in organizations and management. Our researchers in economics work on issues such as health economics, economics of education, etc. Something that we've used as a measure and how we follow the research that we do in the area of sustainability, we use the Cyval tool from Elsevier to track down our research publications according to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And in the past 5 years, when we look into our publication record, 1/3 of our publications are linked to one or more of the Sustainable Development Goals. And there are 3 goals which actually are most relevant for our case. First is the Sustainable Development Goal number 3, that is about good health and well-being, and that is mainly because of the health economics, as I mentioned, work in health economics, what we do. Then the SDG number 8, decent work and economic growth, where our researchers in human resources management, as well as also in economics, like for instance the economics of education, do have a role to play. And then the number 12, responsible consumption and production, where my group in corporate environmental management, also researchers in marketing, are doing a lot of work. Next, about the campus sustainability. We actually have been doing a lot together with the university. So this is specific, mostly something that we do together with the whole university to make sure that our own operations are sustainable and we are improving them all the time. You can see the logo of the World Wildlife Fund Green Office Environmental Management System on the upper right-hand corner of the slide. We've had an accreditation or the right to use the logo from the WWF for the environmental management system since 2013. Through this very system, we have a lot of different targets and goals for the university. Many of them connected also to climate change. For instance, we are working towards car-free campus. We are not there yet, but we are working towards that. We also try to see how to become a zero waste campus. We are committed to using fair trade products in our catering. And last year, we made a commitment to be carbon neutral by 2035. For that goal, we currently are working on the calculations on the carbon footprint, then to come up with a more detailed plan towards the 2035 carbon neutrality. Other things that the university as a whole is doing for the campus sustainability, to mention a couple of other things. Our research and innovation services are supporting researchers with the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals in how to define the links of their research to Sustainable Development Goals. That has been very useful for the researchers in a way to try to learn about how to make it visible and first of all to see the linkages to sustainability in their own work. We are also now taking part in the Times Higher Education impact reporting. Next, few words about the sustainability impacts in society through cooperation that we do, which is of course very, very important. We have a lot of partners we are working with in the area of sustainability. We are a signatory partner of the Prime. We are also committed to the Responsible Research in Business and Management organization. We are working a lot with GRLI. Our faculty members are active in many societies like European Business Ethics Networks. Aspen Institute was mentioned already because of the Beyond Grey Pinstripes, which doesn't exist anymore, but we have other connections to Aspen Institute, etc., etc. We were also a founding member of the Finnish Business and Society organization, which is promoting financially, socially and ecologically sustainable business in Finland. So working with a lot of Finnish companies through the Finnish Business and Society. Plus then our faculty members are sitting in many boards of private companies, also public organizations, bringing their knowledge, their expertise in the area of sustainability into those organizations. Something I also want to mention about the cooperation, which I'm very proud of and happy about. Our students, as well as our alumni, have really taken the kind of the challenge about sustainability together with us. So our student organization, student association, is nowadays pretty active also in sustainability. They have their own sustainability strategy. They have frequently kind of periods, like for instance last year they had in March a whole month dedicated to sustainability, looking into issues of sustainability in the studies and again in the work of this association as a whole. Also the alumni association of our school has become more active in the area. When they celebrated an anniversary last fall, they organized seminar as part of the festivities, and that was about sustainability in business, where many of our alumni who are working with these issues in business were brought together and discussing the issue in a panel discussion and so forth. Then I will continue with the education. something a bit more closely about that. So how I like to present our approach to sustainability in our curriculum, I think that we have three ways to bring the message to the students. So first of all, we have the compulsory basic course, Introduction to Responsible Business, which is compulsory for all of our students. So that is to make sure that all of our students, all of the future leaders that we are educating, have the basic understanding what sustainability as a whole is. What are the challenges that they will be facing in the future in their work, and what are the basic sort of responses, ways to work with those issues. The second issue, what we are working on all the time, we are integrating sustainability into our courses in all disciplines and all degree programs. I can't say that sustainability is integrated to all of our courses right now, but to several courses. And what we decided last year when we were renewing our curricula for the next 3 years period, will start from next autumn term. We said that we will try to define the link of the contents of the course to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals already in the curriculum for those courses where there is a natural link for these issues. And I will show you on the next slide a couple of examples about that. Before going there, just to mention now that then the third kind of a level in bringing sustainability to our students is then a specialized master's and doctoral program in corporate environmental management. Now to the examples of how our teachers have defined the sustainable development goals related to their courses. Just two examples. At the moment, we have 57 courses in the curriculum, which do have some links given to the sustainable development goals. So here are two examples from international finance, and then another one about sustainable consumption and marketing course. I won't read those through, but just to give you an idea what we have been doing with the sustainable development goals. This is now serving also as a pilot for the whole university. So all the other faculties are looking into this and planning also to most probably to do the same. And then also we have the Ministry of Education in Finland has been interested about what we are doing about this. So we will see. We'll then maybe also spread to other Finnish universities. But a way to make sustainability visible for our students. Then to the master's program, international master's program in corporate environmental management. Something about that. So as I already said, we started the training in this very area already in 1995. And we were actually the first university in Scandinavia offering a full master's degree in area of corporate environmental management. From the very beginning, we have been we've had an interdisciplinary approach in our curriculum. So what we are doing, we are integrating management studies with environmental sciences, and in practice, how we do it, we take students with different backgrounds into the program. So they can come with a business background, they can come in with a natural science background, with an engineering background. Depending on what they've done in their bachelor's studies, they will then do more business or more environmental sciences in addition to what are the common courses in corporate environmental management for them all. This is an international program, as said, with English as a working language and a 2-year program, as most of the master's programs in Finland are. In 2001, World Resources Institute was going through business schools to see how the future business leaders are prepared in business schools for the sustainability challenges. And by that time, we were our program was mentioned as one of the 5 cutting-edge programs in the area of environmental management. And as I already mentioned, then later on after that, we were then rated in the Beyond Grey Pinstripes as a whole school, then successively as long as the Beyond Grey Pinstripes was there. The rating doesn't exist anymore. More or less my last slide about the contents of the program, just to give you an idea about a kind of a guiding philosophy that we've had for years in the program. How do we explain what corporate environmental management is and what we are trying to teach to our students? So we tend to say that there are 3 core competence areas that we want our students to learn during their studies. First of all, you have to start reading this from the bottom up. So the firstly, you build the basis by identifying the environmental impacts of the organization itself, plus the products, services it is producing. So that's the knowledge you have to have in as the first phase. Then the second step is then to manage those environmental impacts, where you use, for instance, environmental management systems, material flow management, life cycle analysis, so on, for those issues. And once you've done that, once you know what your impacts are, and you have started to work with the solutions, so improving the situation, then that is the basis for your environmental strategy, marketing, all of that. And why I said that we have to start reading this from the bottom up, that's our way also to fight the greenwashing idea, so that you have to have the knowledge about the issues before you go out marketing, telling about your sustainability achievements or something like that. Last, to sum up, to end, just a couple of ideas about the lessons, what we've learned in our sustainability work at the Jyväskylä University School of Business and Economics might be something for you to take away. To directly continue from the previous slide with the triangle, I would say that also for the business school to be credible in any sustainability work, first, take care of the sustainability of your own operations at the campus. We have the environmental management system. Not everyone needs that, but that's a good tool, for instance, to be really credible. In education, bringing sustainability to all students in a basic course is probably a good idea. Linking sustainability to all disciplines, to all degree programs in one way or another, probably more in some programs, a bit less for others. That's something I would definitely recommend. And then potentially building a specialization in sustainability, as we've done. Not necessarily, but the first 2 I think would be important basically for any business school. Then about the research, which I find just as important as the education. We mostly talk about education when we talk about sustainability and supporting sustainability at the universities. Promote the visibility of sustainability of your research through for instance, the SDGs of the United Nations. That seems to be a nice way to do it, both for the researchers themselves, for the students, and then for all the stakeholders. And then my very last point, the old proverb, think global, act local. So work together with society, your stakeholders, to increase understanding and support sustainable business transition, because that is anyhow the most important thing that we can do at the business school for a better future in terms of sustainability. Thank you very much. I will hand over back to Paul.
Thank you, Hanna, Leena. That was fantastic. So we're going to pass over to Claudine. So we'll just get Claudine set up so she can present.
Okay. I'm good to go, I think.
Okay, we just need to get you into presenter mode. If you just click the little icon at the bottom.
Oh, I did, I think. No. Can you not see my screen?
I can see your screen, but we can see the slides at the side.
Sorry. There we go.
Excellent. So over to you, Claudine.
Great, thank you very much. And thank you everybody for listening to us today. So I thought I would start with a quick introduction to why I'm talking to you today. I've been a sustainability professional in the past 25 years or so, looking at really building strategies for various organisations, some of whom you can see on this screen. My latest role at Argent, I have responsibility for sustainability and digital strategy, which sort of really comes together to deliver a proper sustainable world. And I just don't think we can do it without digital. So I started off building strategy for Honda. That was my first role. I'm an environmental scientist by background and training. And in all my roles, I've had to look at the company's environmental, social, and governance and understand how they can exist for the long term by really managing those risks and realizing that the opportunities that also brings along with it. What I'd like to cover today as a part of that is, why is sustainability even important? Some of the trends that we need to respond to as organizations, how we put sustainability into overall business strategy, and I'll give some examples of how I've done that with some of these organizations, and finally, what this means for business schools. So first of all, why is sustainability important? Well, I think we all know the SDGs exist, the UN Sustainable Development Goals, all 17 of them. But what they tell us is that if we don't do what they're saying, we will not be able to exist on this planet and exist and thrive. What we don't often realise is that in making a lot of these transitions, there are huge opportunities, trillions pounds, dollars worth of opportunities through these transitions. And obviously there will be losers and people who gain through these transitions. But I think it's always important to mention that there is lots of positives that come out of these opportunities, economic positives. My screen is frozen for some reason. I'm going to the next slide.
Okay, Claudine, if you go down to the bottom where the PowerPoint sign is.
Yeah. Maybe if I just. Oh, here we go.
Ah, there we go. Perfect. Back to you.
My Wi-Fi is a bit slow. Anyway, right. So the world is definitely telling us, even past COVID, that we're still interested in what's going on in climate change in particular. The public sentiment has really spoken, and I think particularly I did some research around who finds this particularly important to them and are changing their lifestyles because of it. Is usually Gen Z and below. And as they are the students of the future, I think we need to not only include these subjects in all business school courses, we need to provide them with what they want to hear, because this is becoming a demand, not just a nice to have thing. There is definitely return on investment around this, and you can tell I'm a very positive around this rather than looking at the cost. I've been beaten down over the years by many people who, when you mention sustainability, they say, well, how much is it going to cost? So there is a return, and this is from the Carbon Disclosure Project. And it's not always, the thing to consider is that the return isn't always immediate, and sometimes it's not even quantifiable, and it is qualitative measures that you are adding value to society as a whole that can't always be measured. So I think what we need in the leaders that we bring forward through these courses is that they need to learn to lead with their gut as well as their head, and know how to deal with ambiguity as we go forward and transition to almost a completely different economy. The policy world is hugely changing, obviously very different in different parts of the world. This is just in the UK, and you can almost see competition occurring between different regions in setting their net zero targets. Some places like Manchester have said they'll be net zero by 2028. Bristol is saying by 2030. I looked up Nottingham yesterday and they were saying by 2025. So there's a real competition, and I think the competition is occurring because they want to attract people to these cities. They're saying that we're much more committed, come and live here, come and add to our economy. So it really is an important issue in society as a whole. This report was launched by Institutional Investors Group on climate change last October, and it has 117 members, pension funds, asset management across 13 countries, and they have over 23 trillion euros under asset management. I think we're seeing much more of these come about, and different requirements to report in different frameworks like the TCFD and this one. And I think it's quickly becoming mandatory rather than a consideration for organisations to want to participate. So I know that a lot of PLCs are starting to report against this and against their climate change risks. So now I'm going to move on to some of the trends that I wanted to talk about. Obviously, I'm not going to go through all of these, but the plastics kickback, obviously it was huge. But post-COVID, we're starting to use a lot more things that we only use once and put in the bin. A lot of them are plastic. So we've gone slightly backwards on that, and I think we'll come back and we'll have to really think about how we do take plastics out of our supply chains. Climate crisis, I won't talk a huge amount about, but we are going to see a huge amount of migration, and how do we deal with that in our supply chains, in labour? There's a huge rise of nationalism. Again, I think you're all aware of that. What I would like to pick up on is some of the hidden things that are going on that we don't really consider on a day-to-day basis. Our increased energy needs because of more and more people going online and requiring that energy to use the benefits, and a huge amount of benefits of being online. The other one is around participatory democracy. Well, that's a really interesting one. I've got an example from Antwerp where 10% of budget for local council is decided on by local citizens. And I think we're going to see more and more of that trend come about because of all sorts of issues around transparency, citizens wanting to have a voice in how things happen and get spent. And I think interestingly also that will apply to data as well, that data management, we need to be thinking about how we co-manage that and how we co-own that as a society, as opposed to particular organisations owning it. And then, of course, circular economy, a huge, huge opportunity for us to really dabble in circular economy, to not use virgin materials, to not have waste at all in our society, that we pay huge amount of money to dispose of, and for what? A little bit more on the opportunities around trends. So I now work in the real estate sector, but I've pulled these together for our own company and for our own strategy to think about what the trends are and what are the opportunities for us now and for the future. And I'll pick out a few of these. So changing nature of work, for example. Wow, has that accelerated past COVID? So looking at how we change space to accommodate that. Are people going to just go back to their offices and sit down in front of computers and work? I honestly don't think so, because space is so expensive. And in London, that's so very little of it that we're fighting for where are we going to put housing, which is what we really need to do. And some of these spaces will really transition. And that's a huge opportunity for us, and a huge opportunity to think about how do we use carbon reduction and less energy and all of that environmental elements that come with it, as well as health and well-being and so on, to try and transition that to the right place. Talking about things like ethical consumerism, how do we attract occupiers to an estate that represents that for the public and general public, and be the leading voice of sustainable products and procurement as a place. So the company I work for have an estate called King's Cross, very connected, middle of London, fantastic estate, but it really needs to transition now, even though it's fairly new. Thinking about biodiversity collapse, we have a huge opportunity to connect health and well-being with the health and well-being of the planet and the health and well-being of people, and bringing that together. A huge amount of studies have proven that people's health and well-being increases when they are exposed to green spaces. And building those into our own space is really important for a real estate company. I'll move on, but I'm sure we can make these slides available to whoever would like to see them, as I see we're starting to run out of time. So I wanted to also bring this up, that every decade has had something that it's brought about in terms of almost a revolution. I think we're still going through the whole experience economy part of this. And we're seeing more of that in retail happening. But actually, 2020s are going to be about circular economy, that we're running out of resources, we are not using things efficiently, and bringing back that whole lean management of ways of using our supply chains, making sure that we cut out the waste, is completely the right thing to do, and coming away from a linear way of producing something, using it and throwing it away, to using that material over and over again, fixing things as opposed to throwing them away, and creating a whole new economy. And this is where some of those SDG trillions of dollars can come in, because we're transitioning to a circular economy, provides a huge amount of opportunity for jobs and for the whole economy. So I think the hardest thing about sustainability is that when you decide to tackle one thing, it has consequences on many other things. So it's really important to think and act in a systems approach. We have a tendency to just do what we have always done in the past and do it in the same way. And this lands us in a lot of trouble. So I think using fossil fuel as an example, we've used fossil fuel as the backbone of our economy for many years. And we've ended up with the unintended consequences of increasing carbon in the atmosphere and the issues and the problems we're having now. So we need to think in this much more systems way to be able to not end up with those unintended consequences. Of course, this is very difficult. It's not easy. It does not come naturally to human beings. But I do think it's really important that our future leaders coming out of these business schools really get their head around how you think in a systems way. A good example of systems thinking around climate change resilience. We need to bring the mitigation together with the adaptation and think about the space in between also in how all these things connect. Health connects in, migration connects in, how we build our cities, how we use our energy. All of these things have to be thought through in a much more integrated way. I wanted to show you an example of an organisation that I think has done this really well. It's not without its faults, of course, but they are put up there as a fantastic example of really integrating strategy into the whole purpose of their organisation and reporting it in a way that is very engaging, engages all their stakeholders, and it's I think made them much more resilient as an organisation than if they hadn't just carried on as Unilever business as usual. So sustainability as a core part of strategy. I've developed many strategies, but I thought I would pick out these three, which are the most recent ones that I've developed. EasyJet was really exciting, and it took us 4 months to develop a strategy from scratch to be able to go out there and say that they were the first aviation organisation to be net zero. And we did that on the 19th of November last year. And I'll talk just a little bit about that in a moment as well. At the Crown State, I put into place almost a governance reporting structure that helped them make the right decisions by incorporating all externalities, carbon price, health pricing, and using proxies for those to actually make decisions. And we call this the total contribution methodology, which actually is on their website and available to see. And then for Sainsbury's, it was very interesting, huge supply chain, and we looked at a very systems way at this strategy in looking at the whole value chain and understanding where the biggest impacts are and to tackle those going forward and making the right decisions at the right points to make the biggest impact. So EasyJet, we decided because that there wasn't going to be the technology to change the way we fly until 2040 to 2050, that the only thing EasyJet could do to really participate in a world where the climate is massively changing around us was to offset. And once we did all our calculations and took it to the board several times, because they were going to be spending over £20 million a year on offsets, we found out that we were going to be 10% of the market, the offset voluntary market, which was huge. And we, as a part of that, really stipulated that that market had to be very, very, very robust. And a lot of people nowadays think carbon offsets is a cop-out. But if it's the right part of the strategy, which it was for EasyJet, because their biggest impact was their fuel and the carbon from their fuel. And that's one thing as a part of a strategy on sustainability you have to really build in, which is what's the biggest and the most material subject for your organisation that you can make the biggest impact on. And as it happens for EasyJet, it was their fuel. And obviously this was the announcement on the 19th of November, the first flight that EasyJet took was net zero carbon. The strategies that I've developed over the years have incorporated huge amount of stakeholder buy-in. And to do that, I've had to know what the stakeholders want from the organisation. So things like what the employees' needs are, customer needs, investors, looking at global trends, looking at what the competitors are doing, looking at regulation, and bringing all that information together to tell you what you need to prioritise for this organisation, what the impacts are, what those material issues are, what's really commercial, where are the opportunities that can really drive this forward, and what does that give you in terms of your stakeholders and the perceptions that they have of you. And then you can make that recommendation, and this is the one we made, I made for Sainsbury's, which was this Living Well plan, Healthy Planet, Healthy You, incorporating circular economy, positive social impact, and holistic health. So lastly, I wanted to cover why is this important to MBAs and just to business schools in general. I think how you build strategies for the company needs to completely incorporate sustainability strategy, and the sustainability strategy shouldn't be something separate or different. Therefore, it needs to be built in to the way you think, the way you lead as a leader. And also, it's becoming more and more apparent that organizations need to be resilient going forward. And we are seeing this sort of emergence of a new type of leader. They're more intuitive, they're more connected, they're less hierarchical. And the sort of ever-evolving landscape and unprecedented events, we need new business models, new risk management, a digital world emerging, and it's incredibly volatile. So we can't just keep going the way we have been going, and we can't keep producing leaders that are from the past. We need leaders that are for the future. I would like to end by saying there is a lot of opportunity out there, but we need our business schools to deliver the leaders that are ready to tackle them and to meet and want to experiment, not just to conform, to drive change for all to live in a much more sustainable world than we do today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Claudine. That was fantastic. And also Hanna, Leena, that was fantastic as well. We've got time for Q&A, so I'm going to start with some questions. The first question is going to be for you, Claudine. So the question is, has COVID-19 made organizations take a step back from sustainability initiatives, or has sustainability become more important than ever?
That's an easy one. I think sustainability has become more important than ever. In a world where health and well-being has become a huge issue, and also climate change is part of that health and well-being. You know, our biodiversity is declining. We have something like 53 harvests left with the kind of soil management that we're doing at the moment. So it's things like this that people are starting to realise we really need to make a huge impact, and these things are just not going away. So I'm busier than ever with strategies, people wanting to understand more about them, how do we develop them going forward, and I really don't think it's going away.
Thank you, excellent. I've got a question for Hanna, Leena. So the question is, does having a focus on sustainability mean that you are more attractive to corporate partners?
That's a difficult question. That's a really difficult question, because how to compare it to I'd like to think so, yes, but it's really difficult to, because you of course don't have then a point of comparison. How would it be without the focus on sustainability? But I'd like to think so, because just as Claudine has said, this is something that is just ever more important in the post-COVID-19 world, for instance.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to stick with you, Hanna, because I've got another question for you. The question is, why is it the role of business schools to come up with solutions to change climate change?
Because the businesses have to be there. Businesses have to be working with the problem, and as also Claudine talked about it, it's also a huge opportunity for the businesses. So therefore, us as business schools, we do have to be able to prepare our students as future leaders for that world of both threats caused by climate change for some of the companies, actually many of the companies, but then also the opportunities for many of the companies. So it's the both sides of the coin. Yeah, I think it's as simple as that.
Excellent. So I've got another question for Claudine. As an employer, what skills do you think business schools need to teach their students to ensure they become sustainable leaders in the future?
I think I mentioned it in my presentation that I think future leaders need to be comfortable with ambiguity. They need to understand different risks to their business. They need to understand the opportunities. They need to understand how to bring innovation into their businesses. They need to be outward looking, not just inward. They need to bring their stakeholders on board and understand what they want. They need to understand what the purpose of their organization is. What are they delivering as a value to the whole of society, not just to their shareholders? I think these are the most important things. I think we need intuitive leaders, not just leaders who lead by numbers.
Thank you. So I've got a question here. I think it would be suitable for the both of you to answer. So I'm going to put it forward to you, Claudine, first, then we'll get Hanna's view as well. So the question is, what organisations do you think are leading the way in terms of their sustainable impact?
I think Unilever, I mentioned, they've been fantastic. IKEA are doing some fantastic things too. They are really dabbling in the circular economy elements. The usual ones who are quite niche and have been doing this for a long time, Patagonia, their clothing company, outdoors clothing company. And Marks and Spencer's in the UK started off doing really well. They've been in trouble though recently from a retail economics perspective. But yeah, I think they're mine.
Excellent. Hanna, have you got anything to add to that question?
I'm trying to think of, those were all great examples. I might have some Finnish examples to add onto that, but maybe trying to think of more global companies, more to the list. Well, in energy sector, I have to mention the Finnish company Neste, which is an oil company in oil business, but they have been working a lot with alternative fuels, bio-based, waste-based fuels, also for aviation. So I don't know what the EasyJet was using on their very first flight, but also for aviation. So have to mention them from the Finnish perspective.
Fantastic. So I've got another question come in, so I'm going to put it towards Hanna. What role did BGA accreditation play in shaping your focus on sustainable practice and responsible management?
As I told you, we had been working with sustainability issues for a long time in all these different areas, whether it's research, teaching, our own campus and cooperation. it anyhow helped us to get even a clearer picture for ourselves, to collect it all together. So that was, I think, the most useful for us to be able to give you a presentation today with somehow a condensed view of what we are doing. So that was useful, I think, for us. And of course, then always to get an outsider's perspective into what we are doing, to get ideas how to improve, because this is a journey which will continue. You're never ready with the sustainability. It's something you have to keep on doing, and you have to keep on improving. So that's really important and valuable to get then an outsider's view on what you're doing.
Thank you. So I've got another question, so I'm going to put it forward to Claudine. In the future, what is the one sustainable initiative you hope all organisations will implement?
Oh, that's a hard question. I'm gonna answer that by saying I think we all need to have a shadow carbon price in our organisations, because I think that's the only way we're going to drive carbon out of our businesses. And I think we need an agreed shadow carbon price almost worldwide to be able to do that.
Okay, thank you. I think we've got time for one more question. What we can do is can be put to both of you. So I'll start with you, Claudine. So the question is, what innovations in sustainability are you most interested in currently?
There's lots of innovation going on. I think being in the real estate sector at the moment, we're looking at how we connect digital technology to buildings to be able to manage everything with data, so that everything is managed in a much more efficient way. Energy is reduced. So for example, at the moment, all buildings have their own BMS systems that the cooling and heating is run through. We want to be able to connect all the buildings that we manage together, so that we detect faults, we are able to tinker with the system so that it's not delivering too much heating, too much cooling, and all of those things actually adds up to a huge amount of energy being saved, and actually more efficient, and it becomes cheaper to run too. Really interesting. But there's a huge amount of innovation going on, connecting digital technologies to sustainable solutions.
Thank you. Hanna, have you got anything to add to that?
Well, I would have started with the energy sector, connected also to what Claudine just said. So that's, I think, the most important at the moment anyhow, towards the carbon neutrality targets, whether it's for the companies or for regions or for nations. So that would be the most important, and I think also most exciting, because those will be huge changes. Sort of finding a way from the current fossil economy into something else, whether it's bio-based or what else. So energy sector as a whole, I think, is very important, which I'm following very closely. Something else also related to the idea of moving from the fossil economy, other uses of the carbon based materials, for instance, textiles, is very interesting what is happening in there, and actually not just carbon-based, so that carbon-based textiles, but then also cotton, which has huge environmental problems. So finding alternatives to that's something. And then as a whole, a really intriguing area, I think, is the whole idea of shared economy and all the different platform service models that we have, where we could move to much less material needs by, however, sharing the gadgets that we are using or products whatsoever. So that's a really interesting area of its own, all three big areas.
Thank you. Unfortunately, that's all the time we've got for today. So I'd just like to thank Hanna, Leena and Claudine again for an excellent session. We've got another session taking place after this one at 3:30 BST with Andy Rowton and Marco Novellis from Business Because, and they'll be presenting on how to create a winning content marketing strategy. I've dropped the link into the chat function, so if you'd like to join that session, you can click the link and it will direct you straight to the registration page to join that session. Also inside the chat function, there's links to see all the recordings of previous sessions, our podcast, and also the virtual exhibition. So if you'd like to go and view any of those, just use the link. I'd just like to say thank you again to Hanna, Leena and Claudine for an excellent session. And thank you everyone for joining. We look forward to see you on another session shortly.
Thank you.
Thank you.